Hello everyone, welcome to my Flosstube channel. My name is Jessie Lee and I'm coming at you with video number... I forgot to check what video number this is. I'm sorry about that. And this is another random midweek video. I'm coming to you with this one late again. I just have not been in rhythm with making Flosstube videos this year. I really just haven't had much of a rhythm with stitching or with my everyday life. Things have just been not flowing very well in 2022, but that's all right. I've still had lots of enjoyable experiences this year, but I don't know if you can tell, I am just getting over being sick. My kids' school lifted their mask requirements, so my kids have been bringing all of the crud home with them. We have not had COVID, thank goodness, but they just keep on bringing home little nasty viruses. We had a bad cold go through our household back at the end of April, and I was only just getting rid of the residual cough from that when they brought home a really nasty cold last week. Me and the kids were super duper sick last week. They missed a bit of school, and I had really just icky cold symptoms. And on top of that, I got the hives for some reason, very severely. I have lots of random allergies, so I get the hives fairly often, but it's usually just very minor. One dose of Benadryl and they're gone for good. But last week, I was just taking allergy meds over and over, and as soon as the meds would wear off, the hives would come back, and that went on for the entire week. The hives are finally gone now, but I have no idea what set that off, and taking all those allergy meds, the side effects of those is almost worse than the hives themselves. I was so out of it. I could not function or get anything done last week. The kids were miserable and cranky, not sleeping well. They had fevers. We just had a really icky feeling week last week, but me and the kids have pretty much recovered. I just have an icky voice. The kids are completely healed and back in school and everything, but now Tim is having his turn with the cold this week, and he has it just as bad as we had it. So it's just an icky setback that is just dragging on. It is no fun. Anyways, the good news is my kids and I rebounded from our sickness by having an awesome weekend together. I just felt so connected with my kids this weekend. We had a blast. We did a bit of shopping together, and one of the places we went shopping was Menards. Menards is a hardware store around where I live, and as well as hardware, they also sell some sporting goods, including kiddie pools. Now, my kids have had the classic tiny blue plastic kiddie pool since they were toddlers, and they have gotten well beyond the expected play value out of that thing. As big kids now, they still love it. They can drag it anywhere in the yard that they want to and fill it up with the hose by themselves. And when they're done splashing around, making a mess with it, it holds a small enough amount of water that we can just dump it out on the lawn. It's not that big of a deal. And they even like playing with it without water in it. They hide underneath it. They build forts with it. They arrange their toys in it. They do all kinds of stuff with it. In fact, we leave it out in the yard for them to play with well into the fall because they just mess with it so much. And then when it's finally about to snow, we will put it away in the garage for next spring. But anyway, they've had this little kiddie pool for so long and have loved it so much that I've had it in mind for a few years now to get them the larger diameter kiddie pool. Theirs is the classic 3.5 foot wide kiddie pool. You can find it at Target, Walmart, pretty much any hardware store, grocery store sometimes. It's just a classic toy. It's cheap. You can find it all over the place. But the larger diameter version of this pool, it's like 5 feet wide and probably 6 to 8 inches deep instead of the little 4 inches deep. That one is harder to find. And the only place I've seen it around here is Menards. And it sells like hotcakes there. In the midsummer, when I think, hey, yeah, we should get that bigger pool, we go to get one and it's always sold out. But I happened to think of it right as the weather got warm now in May. And I thought, let's check to see if it's in stock yet. So we went to Menards, and sure enough, it was there. So we grabbed our big kiddie pool and stuffed it in the car. Getting that 5.5-foot wide kiddie pool into my Kia Rondo, which is a small SUV, was kind of an adventure. I had to bend it a bit so it would fit in widthwise, but that's okay. These pools are resilient, but it did hang over the back seat where my kids sit. My kids were actually able to fully sit up in their car seats and be buckled in as normal, so I don't think it was too unsafe to drive home that way. We didn't have far to go, and I could see out the back windshield, but my kids just thought it was pretty hilarious to have to ride home underneath the kiddie pool. That was just a fun little adventure we had together, and now that kiddie pool hangs out in our backyard with their old little itty bitty one. So not only do they have a bigger kiddie pool that will give them more water to play in, but it pairs up with their existing little one. So now they have two. We won't get rid of the old one. Now they have two of them to love, and I'm just really excited for how that's going to play out this summer. That was super fun to go do that for my kids. Me and the kids also went to the arts and crafts store, or as we call it in my family, the farts and crap store. We went there because Sylvia told me that she wanted to have a hat like mommy. Some background on that. I am a frequent baseball cap wearer. I have been most of my life. Here is a picture of me when I was about 16 years old wearing the blue and green ball cap that I got from camp that I wore until it literally fell apart. I love that hat so much, but as it got onto its last legs, I did replace it with this little collection of hats that I wear these days. I had accumulated a stash of Pusheen patches, and as I realized that my Fort Wilderness ball cap was meeting its end, I gradually picked up some just generic solid colored baseball caps from Target and Walmart and places and personalized them with my Pusheen patches. And I wear these all the time. I'm probably known in my neighborhood as the Pusheen hat lady. I know at the grocery store, some of the cashiers recognize me by my hats, but hats are just comfy, and I'm a lazy ass, and I don't like to do my hair. And since I'm nowadays a stay-at-home mom and a hermit who's not seen very often, I wear a hat 80% of the time. It's just my thing. So Sylvia also knows me for my hats, and she wanted a hat like mommy. So she could personalize her own hat. We went to Hobby Lobby, and she picked out a pink hat and a rainbow patch, which I sewed on for her. So this is Sylvie's little hat. She loves it. She's been wearing it a lot so far. And since we were there and Glenn was with us, we helped him pick out his own patch and hat. So he's got a pizza hat, which is absolutely adorable. So my kids will wear these probably a lot this summer. They're both very, very pale complected children like me. They sunburn easily, so it'll be nice to shield their faces in the summertime. They've never gotten a sunburn, however. I am so diligent about sunscreening my kids. I got sunburned a lot as a kid. I get sunburned a lot as an adult, and it is so painful, and I have a lot of sun damage on my skin, and I just don't want my kids to feel that pain if I have any control over that. It is just my personal goal for my kids to never experience a sunburn at all in their childhood. But once they're 18, hopefully they will have the habit of slathering on sunscreen, and they'll take that on themselves. But right now, pretty much anytime they'll go outside for a prolonged period of time, I am sunscreening them. And now I got some cute hats for them to shield their faces as well. But that was our little activity, was going to the arts and crafts store and picking out these patches and hats for them to wear. Sylvia is especially excited for hers. And now when we're out in public together, we'll all have our ball caps on. So the kids will match mommy. That was just a fun little thing we also did together this weekend. My kids and I also had a magnificent nature walk along the lake that's near our house. It was the perfect hour of the day, the golden hour just before dusk. Dusk is my personal favorite time of day. I am a night owl through and through, and to me, dusk feels the most peaceful yet energizing. Probably how dawn feels to morning people. Dusk feels to me. So we were out at the perfect time of day, and it was the perfect temperature outside, but there was no wind. The air just was not moving at all. So the lake itself was absolutely calm, and the water was just this flat sheet of glass just reflecting the entire sky, which was amazing to me. We have very tall trees here. So something I feel homesick for about Nebraska, where I'm from, where the trees are fewer and shorter, is the great big sky we had out there on the prairie. I miss my big prairie sky. That is the landscape, sort of, back in Nebraska, and I miss that. So getting to have that effect of the sky reflected on the lake was just astounding to me. I loved that so much. And another thing I loved so much was seeing my kids charging ahead on our familiar little trail through the park. The trail through Keller Lake Park is a bit too long for the kids to do totally. Me and Tim can walk it just fine, but it's a bit too long for the kids. So when we walk with the kids, we always do the same portion of it before we turn around and go back home. And it was just so fun to see the kids just power walking down the trail that they know so well, and then eventually stopping at our bench, which is in a clearing very close to the water. And the reeds and grasses that are usually tall in the summertime alongside the water are short at this time. So they were actually able to get up close to the water. They each found a long stick to poke and swish in the water, and were having a good old time exploring right at the bank of the lake. And Glenn found a bit of lake treasure, which really surprised me. I had no idea that this would exist in our lake, but it is this big honking snail shell. What a successful snail that must have been. I didn't know we had snails like this in our lake. And this was definitely a snail shell because it stunk to high heaven before we washed it off. But Glenn found this. It was empty. There was no snail using it anymore, but it's in perfect condition and just so pretty. Unfortunately, most of the lake snails around here are invasive, but the shell does still feel like a treasure. Glenn was so fascinated with it and proud of it, and we will keep it forever to remember that special day. It was just a lovely walk and just a lovely time spent with my kids. Like I said, I'm from the prairie, just flat grassland, so it still feels like a complete novelty to me to live so near a lake and have that be part of my home. And the kids are totally used to it now, so it kind of feels like a blessing that my kids will grow up feeling like this type of natural beauty is just normal. So that was our little lake adventure, and I'm happy to get to talk about it with you guys. Anyway, as for cross stitch, because I was sick, I was not very productive. And also, like I said, this entire year so far, I have really struggled to find a rhythm. And I think part of the reason for that is that I have too many whips. I have 7 whips right now, which I know is very few compared to what some of you have. But for me, I feel like this is just too much. I really prefer to be more of a monogamous stitcher because I'm a completionist. I like to get things done, and having 7 decently sized projects to get done is really feeling like a load. And what's worse is I have fallen behind on every single one of them. It is really eating at me and just sucking the joy out of stitching. I am just so worried that I'm not going to accomplish finishing making what I really wanted to make this year, and I'm just anticipating disappointment. It's just a bummer. However, one thing I did accomplish last week was a little surprise project that I managed to crank out in just a day. And that was a little ornament to give to my sister-in-law to commemorate her first Mother's Day, because my little niece was born this year. And I stitched up the cutest ornament. I was so excited to send it off to my sister-in-law for Mother's Day, and I'm so excited to show you a picture of how it turned out. This is it. I stitched up this mama duck and her duckling. They were so adorable, and the back of this ornament, I have never been so happy with how the back of one of my projects has looked. I found the perfect wooden button, and it was cute. It was a heart shape, and it was just the right size to cover up the center of where my little frill was gathered. The back was just so pretty, and that button was perfectly rustic to go with the ducks. And the fabric that I stitched the ducks on was the perfect fabric for a water scene. It was a scrap that I had in my stash left over from my Bayun cat. And I stitched those ducks so dainty, 1/1 on this 32 count Tico linen by Picture This Plus. And the name of the linen is actually interesting. The linen is a soft mottled gray color, and the designer felt that it looked like the moon. So they named it Tycho after one of the craters that is on the moon. And that crater is actually named after Tycho Brahe, who was a Danish astronomer. The name is spelled like this. So I think most people would call this fabric Tycho, just from the phonetic spelling, but it's actually pronounced Tico, just so you know. I'm just a nerd, so I just get a kick out of the meaning behind the name. But that is a rabbit trail I am on. Anyway, I stitched up this ducky pattern. And, oh, the pattern name, let me give that to you. I took the mama duck and the duckling from this design, which is called Mother and Baby Animals. And I bought that from creativepoppypatterns.com. I forgot to write down the designer, so I will find that and put that in the description for you guys. But anyway, that was a little ornament that I made for my sister-in-law. It was such a joy to create, and it really made stitching feel fun again for me. I was so happy to actually complete something and have it on time for Mother's Day, and it just made me feel better about my craft again. So that was a happy thing. Another project that I've actually had a lot of fun stitching on lately is my temperature butterflies by Sarah the Stitchin' Mommy. It looks so cool. I am stitching this on 25 count black Lugana with the brightest colors of DMC Light Effects and DMC Satin Flosses. And while I did recently complain about the texture of some of these flosses, it was still really exciting to finish up the April butterfly. I love how that one turned out. I think the April butterfly and the January butterfly are my favorites so far. But it was super exciting to begin stitching green. I haven't gotten to do any green butterfly wing parts yet. These green colors right here at the beginning of May represent the low and mid 70s. Very pleasant temperatures and very pleasant colors to work with. I was actually pretty relieved to see how this light green here turned out looking on the fabric, because in my color gradient here, when you see it with just the flosses, it is this one right here. And as you can see, when you see it just in this neon rainbow, it seems a bit washed out, but I needed it for the gradient. I really didn't have a better option to go in there, but it looks completely different actually stitched on the fabric. And this darker green right up alongside it is the perfect blue tone to match it and just brings it all together. So I'm happy with how these greens are working out. It's a little nerve-wracking because these are challenging colors. So every time I get to use a new one and it looks okay, that's just confirming that I made the right color choices when I chose these crazy neons. So I've had a lot of fun with this piece. Finishing a butterfly, getting through another month feels so satisfying, and then getting to bring out new colors to play with is super duper fun. So my temperature butterflies have been just extra rewarding to work on lately. Since I'm on the subject of temperature designs, I might as well show you my temperature walk with me whip. This is also a design by Sarah the Stitchin' Mommy. It looks like this. And I am stitching this for my in-laws who have two beloved doggies of their own, and they live in Florida. So I have personalized the pattern a little bit to where they live. So here is my whip. And as you can see, I put in a little gecko here instead of a squirrel. And this little lizard I just sketched up myself on graph paper. He's very simple. So if for whatever reason you want to stitch a tiny lizard motif, just let me know and I will give you the pattern for him, I guess. And then I also changed the apple tree into an orange tree right here, simply by stitching in orange X's instead of red X's. I also changed up the color of the concrete in the road and sidewalk. They needed to be a warmer toned gray so they wouldn't clash with my light blue Zweigart even weave 28 count that I'm stitching on. But I did keep the called for colors for the paw prints here. And I think they're very pretty. It is so interesting to me to stitch in the colors chosen by somebody who I know. Sarah the Stitchin' Mommy is a floss tuber and a cross stitcher that I look up to very much. She was the first floss tuber that I ever started watching, and she's the one who inspired me to get back into cross stitching. So to stitch her patterns in her colors is super fun. And here is the threads for this piece. All of the rainbow you see here are the colors that she chose for the temperatures, minus a few. The temperatures don't fluctuate a whole heck of a lot where my in-laws live, so I made a smaller temperature scale, so I had to pull out a few of the colors, but these colors here that you see are the ones that Sarah chose, and they're so pretty, and I do like stitching with them. The temperatures don't change a whole lot, so I get a lot of repeats stitching along on this pattern, but since they're such pretty colors chosen by Sarah, that makes it a little more fun. Another family piece that I've worked on is the alphabet sampler that I am stitching for my baby niece, Rhea. I plan on having it done for her first Christmas this year, and it is from the pattern A is for Ellipsis by Durene Jones. This is the cutest alphabet pattern that I have ever seen. I had it on my wish list even before I had a baby in my family to stitch it for, so I'm grateful for Rhea because she gave me an excuse to stitch this super cute design. And here is my whip. I'm stitching this on 32 count lime Lugana 2/2 with all the called for colors, except I'm using a dark green floss for all of the text instead of black. And I recently got this ghost done. I was kind of dragging my feet on starting him because I was just not in the mood to stitch in white, but I did get him done and he stitched up really quick. And he's super cute. I love his rosy cheeks. It was a good thing that I got him out of the way because this is one of the whips that I am the most behind on. This month, I had planned to stitch the rest of this line. So I got to get H, I, and J done within these next 2.5 weeks left in the month, I think, in order to get back on track with this piece. So I have a heart, an ice cream, and a jellyfish to do. I am pretty motivated to get to the jellyfish because the jellyfish in this design is super cute. But this is A is for Ellipsis by Durene Jones that I'm stitching for baby Rhea. This one is very fun to stitch on, even when I have to stitch a white ghost. And the last little bit of stitching I managed to get done was on Quaker Piece by Remembering Bygone Stitches. Here's the design. And here is what my whip looks like. Most recently, I stitched this half of a motif. The other half of it is going to be the green. And I got this little tiny peace sign done too. It's super cute. And I stitched all of that progress on Mother's Day. This is my Sabbath stitch. I work on this every other Sunday when I'm not recording a Flosstube video. So the progress on this is slow, but it's okay. This isn't really a high priority whip for me, but it is quite a nice pattern to work on Sundays. It seems an appropriate subject matter for the Sabbath. So on Mother's Day, I got to stitch this bunch of a motif. This motif was intimidating to me looking at it on the pattern because it's just so spread out, and I was concerned about how the variegation of the thread would look, but it turned out to be easy breezy. It was really fun to stitch this part of the motif. Probably one of the more fun parts of the pattern that I've gotten to stitch so far. So I was grateful that that was my stitching on Mother's Day. Oh, and this tiny peace sign, of course, too, was oh so cute. It was fun to squeak that in. I'm stitching this 1/2 on 36 count fabric flare even weave in historical beige with 2 shades of Threadworks floss that I don't remember off the top of my head. But as you can see, one is a variegated pastel rainbow, and the other is a variegated mint green, and they look quite pretty together. Stitching with one thread is just so tactile and lovely. It doesn't get tangled on itself or knotted. My stitches just look so nice and neat and dainty. So this is just a fun one to stitch, and I'm always happy to revisit it every other Sunday or so. That is all the stitching I have to show you this time, and it really was not much, but I do think I said the word fun about 100 times when I was showing it to you, so clearly the experience of stitching has improved for me since my roast video. But anyway, as for getting back on track with my progress, I think I will get in a better spot if I just prioritize my alphabet and my autumn cat sampler through the rest of this month. So hopefully I will have some good chunks of work done on those to show you in my next video, whenever that'll be. Hopefully not too far from now. But until that next video, God loves you, I love you, and happy stitching. Bye-bye, you guys.